is that it's a really bad idea to try and run a monetary system based on a commodity, right? It's much better to run a monetary network, which is intended to be a system for allocating our time and our energy based on math, right? Based on a system that has inviolable rules, or one that incentivizes fair play versus a twisting of the rules, because that would actually produce the best outcome and the best mode of play, right? When rules are fixed, players are going to play the game to the best of their ability. But when rules are bendable or breakable, you're actually creating incentives to behave in a corruptive way, or an exploitative way. Um, and that's what Bitcoin is, right? You could, through that game theoretic lens, you could just say it's the most fair game we've ever had. It's a fixed rule set that no one can change or manipulate.
That is Robert Breedlove, and today I have another clip of him and Michael Saylor from his YouTube channel from episode 4 of his Saylor series that was done in December of 2020. In this first clip, Michael explains how Bitcoin has crossed a threshold by becoming the first digital monetary system to cross the $100 billion market cap threshold. Bitcoin is dematerializing money similar to how Amazon dematerialized books. Money is the highest form of energy. Enjoy the clip.
When I think of Bitcoin, I think this is the first digital monetary system in the history of the world. Perhaps the first, we've tried others, they just didn't work. This is the first one that's perfected, that's functioning. It's the first one to cross $100 billion in market cap, and now it's about $200 billion in market cap. $200 billion means $200 billion of monetary energy. And if I look at all of the other great digital networks, Apple, Google, Facebook, when they cross $100 billion of monetary energy, then that's a legitimizing step. Generally, when they get there, 95% or more of the investment community doesn't believe in them. Sometimes 99% doesn't believe in them, but they're too big to fail. They're fires that have been unleashed into the society, and they're burning, and the effect is exothermal. It's what we have in each of these networks is we have the collapse, a dematerialization of some product or service or virtue or some ineffable quality, be it friendship or mobile devices or information. It's collapsing into a lower energy state. And as it collapses into a lower energy state, huge amounts of energy in the form of profit, cash flow, and value get given off. Apple can ship a better camera to 1 billion people overnight for a nickel. Right. Facebook can improve the way that you communicate to your loved ones overnight for a nickel. And Google can package the Library of Alexandria in the palm of your hand and ship it to 1 billion people overnight for a nickel. And when you have these massive dematerializations of value, and they get on a network with a network effect, it's almost like what you see, a crystallizing structure where you've got an amorphous substance, and as it crystallizes, we go from steam to water to ice. Collapses, gives off energy. And what Bitcoin is it's that first digital monetary network, digital monetary system. It's collapsing into a much more efficient form. It's giving off energy. And that just brings us back to this entire subject of how important is energy to the human race. Okay.
Let me ask a question there. There's a chart with phase transitions of, say, water, of going from ice to water to steam as its temperature increases. And it shows increases in temperature. And then when it actually goes into the phase transition, it flatlines. So it's like all that energy is being reallocated to, I guess, changing the molecular structure for the next state. Then the temperature starts to increase again as it goes into water, and it flatlines again before it goes into steam. So I guess what you're getting at is that energy becomes transmuted into the next state before it can start to give off energy in the form of profit, productivity. It's giving back economic substance, I guess, to its users. And I think that's sort of the analogy you're drawing there.
It's a wild thing when all the monetary energy leaps from gold to Bitcoin, or when it leaps from fiat to Bitcoin. There's this phase transition, and we see it throughout all areas of science. But right now, this is just the first time in human history that we see this creation of a pure digital monetary network. And I want to replace monetary network with energy network, because monetary energy is energy, and money is energy. In fact, money is the highest form of energy. So if we ask the question, what is money? Money is the highest form of energy that human beings can channel.
In this next clip, Michael explains how new technology is always faster, cheaper, and stronger. When it comes to moving $100 million, Bitcoin is 1,000 times faster and 50,000 times cheaper than gold. Enjoy the clip.
Every good technology is smarter, faster, stronger. Every technology, smarter, faster, stronger. So coming to digital gold versus gold, physical gold is not fast enough. How fast is it? If I wanted to move $100 million of gold, as we talked about, it's going to cost me $250,000. So it's impedance. But how long is it going to take you? A week? A month? Somewhere between, you want to move 3,000 pounds of gold from New York to, I've got a month, I'm guessing, if you want to get all the protocols set up. So you're talking about $250,000 in a month to move the gold. If, assuming I needed another custodian and I used Bitcoin and I wanted to move $100 million of Bitcoin, and this is where, Bitcoin critics are just utterly wrong and missing the point. They all think, oh, well, it takes 30 minutes and $5 to move Bitcoin. And they're comparing it to a new crypto network that has no value on it. And they're saying,
Right.
I could find a way to move it in 5 minutes for a nickel. But that's not the point. The appropriate comparison is to gold. How long would it take to move $100 million of gold? And because there's $250 trillion in assets in the alt assets, and there's only $25 billion of real asset in the alt coins or the alt cryptos. So how long does it take me to move the $250 trillion around? And when you think about that, you realize that Bitcoin would move it in 30 minutes instead of 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's 1,440 times as fast, right? 1,000 times as fast a minute versus 1,440 minutes in a day. And so it's 1,000 times as fast, but then it's $5 versus $250,000.
Right.
I know. So we do that. That's 50,000 times cheaper.
Absolutely.
So now we've got people saying, "Oh, well, it's very energy inefficient." Blah blah blah. Well, it's not really. It's inefficient in the way that it's inefficient to create an electro high speed transit system, a mass transit system. It was expensive to build the mass transit system. It got really, really cheap to move on the rails.
Right.
If you look at the history of railroads, right, the biggest thing in the 19th century was railroads. It was pretty expensive to create the railroads. It became really cheap to move on the rails.
Right.
So what we do is we created crypto rails. in order to make it 50,000 times cheaper to move. But it's not just that it's 50,000 times cheaper. It's that it's 1,000 times faster and 50,000 times cheaper. And then when you start to multiply 1,000 times 50,000, and you realize it starts to be 50 million times faster.
Right.
And then you start to add that third dimension, which is maybe a computer that thinks about this while you're sleeping 18,000 times. And you realize eventually you get to 50 billion times faster. And now we've got to a new engineering or our new scientific metaphor, which is superconducting networks.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
if you know, there's impedance going through electric power network and you're losing it. And so the solution is I need to get the superconductance. I got to cool the network down to close to near zero.
Right.
And it's expensive. And the point is, yeah, it's expensive to get to near zero. And then the impedance disappears in the network and the friction goes away. And what could you do if the friction went completely away?
Right. You're in outer space, right? The smallest amount of energy can move something billions of miles. And I love
Okay,
that
so
analogy too, that you're getting to a lower energy state, and that eliminates the frictions to conductance. So you achieve superconductivity. And in a way, that's what Bitcoin is, right? It's a monetary medium completely free of the noise of unexpected inflation. So you're actually conveying pure price signal. Something even gold, we didn't quite have that.
And I love your analogy because I mean the aerospace engineer in me is loving it a lot. You could think about when you encrypt monetary energy on the Bitcoin network, it's like achieving escape velocity out of the gravity well. What we've done, we paid a price to get out of the gravity well. Throw a baseball on a baseball field that goes a couple of 100 feet. Get out of the gravity well, throw the baseball, it'll go around the earth forever.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Okay, so how much more distance do you get out of the baseball if you pay the price of getting out of the gravity well?
Right.
It's not like 10 times better. It's not 100 times better. It's not 1,000,000 times better. It goes to infinity and it never stops. And that's the breakthrough that people don't get. It's like, what could I do if I had vacuum and I was rid of friction? And yeah, there's a price to pay. And that's your phase change and your state change. And that's why I would say Bitcoin is the most efficient system for channeling energy through time and space in the history of mankind. We've never figured out how to channel energy with no impedance and channel energy with no loss. But let's come back to the outer space analogy. Take your flashlight and shine it in your basement. Take your flashlight, shine it, on your baseball field. Now get into outer space and take your flashlight and shine it. Or flip it the other way, the Hubble telescope, right? How much better are the photos you get from the Hubble telescope than the photos you get from a telescope that has to shoot through the atmosphere?
Right.
It's
Free
not
of
like
distortion.
it's 1 billion times better.
Yeah.
It's like you just can't really imagine the world when you're trapped in
I think
this energy well.
This analogy too holds for the counterparty, the institutional counterparty risk. It's almost as once you escape the gravity well, you're also free of institutional counterparty risk, right? I don't need to worry about the stability of the United States or JP Morgan to transmit Bitcoin 100 years into the future. You only need to be concerned about the stability of the energy network, which is maintained by the collective self-interest of the world, in theory.
Yeah, it's something that's just altogether unique, and we've just never had it before. If you now conceptualize that and you go through your thought experiment, you realize we need a monetary system. And our monetary system, the three in front of our face are, let's take it. Fiat as a monetary system, gold as a monetary system, Bitcoin as a monetary system. If I put my $100 million of monetary energy, I have energy. I take energy, I sell it on the grid, you give me money. I take my money, I put it into the US dollar bank, it's in fiat. I wait 100 years. And it's 7 to 8% asset inflation rate. I have a half-life of 10 years. So I get cut in half 10 times. Okay, 100 million, 50 million, 25 million, 12 million. It's going to get painful.
Yeah.
6 million, 3 million. I only cut in half 5 times. 1.5 million. That's 6 times. Now it gets really painful. 70 basis points, 35 basis points, 17 basis points, 8 basis points.
8 basis points. Crazy.
By the way, 8 basis points if you don't get hyperinflation. The 8 basis points if your nation wins
Your
every
best
war.
case. Yeah.